Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a complete revision of a really important chapter for your board exams. I'm talking about Chapter 4, Agriculture. Now this isn't just about marks, it's about understanding the heart of India. So I want you to get your notebooks ready, focus, and let's begin.
So, first things first. Why is this chapter so important? Well, it's because agriculture is what we call a primary economic activity. You can think of it as the very foundation of our country's economy. I mean, it's not just about the food we eat, right? It's also where we get the raw materials for so many big industries, like cotton for our clothes or sugarcane for sugar. Okay, here's what we're going to cover today. We'll start with why agriculture is India's primary activity. Then we'll look at the different types of farming. After that, we'll cover India's cropping seasons, go through a guide to the major crops, and then talk about farming reforms and technology. And we'll finish up with some map work and a final revision. A full package.
All right, let's dive into our first section. We've all heard this saying, haven't we? That agriculture is the backbone of the Indian economy. But what does that actually mean? Let's find out.
Now, here's a number that you must remember for your exams. 2/3. Just think about that. 2 out of every 3 people in India are involved in agricultural activities. That's a massive part of our population depending directly on farming for their living. It's a huge number, and it really shows you just how important this sector is. So, does everyone in India farm in the exact same way? Of course not. The way people farm changes based on where they live, the kind of climate they have, and what they need. So let's explore the different types of farming we see across India, from the very basic to the big commercial ones.
Okay, this table has a lot of key information, so let's go through it slowly one by one. First up, we have primitive subsistence farming. This is the oldest, most basic type. Think small patches of land, simple tools like a hoe or a dhow, and the main purpose is just to grow enough food for the family to eat. A classic example of this is slash and burn or zooming. Next, we have intensive subsistence farming. This happens where there are a lot of people living in one area. The pressure is on to get the most out of a small piece of land, so farmers use more modern things like fertilizers. Then there is commercial farming. The name says it all, right? Here, the main goal is to sell the crops in the market, so they use things like high-yielding variety seeds to get a big harvest. And finally, there's plantation farming. This is actually a type of commercial farming, but it's unique because a single crop, like tea or coffee, is grown on a very large area, usually for industries.
This picture gives you a really good idea of what slash and burn agriculture looks like. See, what farmers do is they'll clear a patch of land in the forest, burn the trees and plants, and use the ash as fertilizer. They'll farm there for a couple of years, but when the soil loses its nutrients, they move on to a new patch. Remember, this is also called jumming, especially in northeast India.
All right, moving on to our next topic. Because of our climate, India is special. We have 3 different cropping seasons in a single year. And let me tell you, knowing the difference between Rabi, Kharif, and Zaid is super important for your exams. This is a very common question. Pay close attention to this table. This is where you can score easy marks. So, let's start with Rabi. Rabi crops are sown in the winter, usually between October and December, and harvested in the summer. Think of crops like wheat, barley, and mustard. Next is Kharif. These are the monsoon crops. They're sown when the rains begin, around June or July, and harvested in September, October. Rice or paddy is the perfect example, along with cotton. And then there's a short season in between during the summer months called Zaid. This is when we get things like watermelon, muskmelon, and cucumber. You really need to remember the sowing months and at least 2 examples for each, okay?
Okay, now we're getting to the real heart of this chapter, India's major crops. We're going to look at the most important ones, and for each one, we'll focus on 2 things: what conditions they need to grow, and which parts of India they are grown in.
So let's begin with the big one, the staple food for most of India, rice. And as we just revised, which season does it belong to? That's right, it's a Kharif crop. So what does rice need to grow well? Well, it needs a lot of water and heat. So the key conditions are high temperature, that's above 25 degrees Celsius, high humidity, and heavy rainfall, more than 100 centimeters a year. Now, when you think about these conditions, it makes perfect sense why the major rice-growing areas are the plains of the north and northeast India, and of course, the coastal and delta regions.
All right, let's move on to our second most important cereal crop, which is wheat. This is the main food crop, especially in the northern and northwestern parts of India. And if rice is Kharif, wheat is, yes, it's a Rabi crop.
Now, wheat is a bit different from rice. It doesn't need hot weather,
In fact, it requires a cool growing season. That's why it's a winter crop. It also needs less rain. Just about 50 to 75 centimeters is enough. So the two main wheat growing zones in India are the Ganga-Sutlej Plains and the black soil region of the Deccan.
Okay, let's do a quick roundup of some other important crops. First, millets like jawar, bajra, and ragi. These are also called coarse grains and are packed with nutrition. Then we have pulses, arhar, mung, gram, which are a major source of protein in our diet. Then there's sugarcane, a tropical crop which gives us our sugar, gur, and kansari. Next are famous beverage crops, tea and coffee, which are grown on large plantations. And finally, the fiber crops, cotton and jute, which are so important for our textile industry.
You know, for a country as big as India, we can't just keep farming the old way. We have to keep improving. So, since independence, there have been many big changes to help our farmers. These are called technological and institutional reforms. Let's look at what has been done to transform Indian agriculture. This timeline is really useful for your long answer questions, so pay attention. Right after independence in the 1950s, the government focused on land reforms like abolishing the zamindari system. Then came the 1960s and 70s, a really big period. We had the Green Revolution, which brought in high-yielding variety or HYV seeds and made us self-sufficient in food. And we also had the White Revolution, also known as Operation Flood, which was all about increasing milk production. Then, from the 1980s onwards, the focus shifted to supporting farmers directly through government schemes, like crop insurance, setting up Grameen banks for easy loans, the Kisan Credit Card or KCC, and providing a minimum support price or MSP for crops.
Now we have to talk about something really special, the Bhudan Gramdan movement. It was a wonderful initiative started by a Gandhian named Vinoba Bhave. He literally walked from village to village and requested wealthy landowners to voluntarily give some of their land, that's Bhudan, or even whole villages, that's Gramdan, to the landless poor. It was such a peaceful and powerful idea that it's often called the bloodless revolution.
Okay, so we've covered all the theory. But you know what's next, right? The practical part that gets you direct marks in the exam. Map work. It's time to use what we've learned and see if we can spot the major crop areas on a map.
All right, let's look at these two maps very carefully. On the left, we have the rice-producing areas. See that dark green part? That's the major belt. Notice how it covers the northern plains, the northeastern states, and the coastal regions. Now look at the map on the right for wheat. The major area, shown in brown, is concentrated in the Ganga-Sutlej Plains in the north and northwest. My advice to you is to take an outline map of India and practice shading these two areas. It will really help you remember.
Okay, are you ready? Let's do a super quick rapid-fire round to check your memory. First question, what is another name for slash-and-burn agriculture? Think about it. Yes, it's juming. Great. Second question, is wheat a rabi or a kharif crop? It's a rabi crop. Perfect. And the last one, which revolution is famous for introducing high-yielding variety seeds? Of course, it's the Green Revolution. Fantastic job!
And that brings us to the end of our revision of the agriculture chapter. We've covered everything from the basics to the map work. You have done a great job revising today. You are well prepared, so please go into your exams with a lot of confidence. All the very best from my side.